Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Abraham Watkins podcast. My name is Jeffrey Atkinson. I'm the social media marketing manager with Abraham Watkins. I am here with newly appointed partner, Karl P. Long. You doing okay, Karl?
Good, thank you, Jeff.
Perfect. Now, Karl, you were just recently promoted. What does that kind of mean to you?
It was a really nice surprise. It was unexpected, but it felt really good. And acknowledgement of all the work I've put in over the years. I've been practicing as a lawyer for 15 years, and making partner was never a goal, but certainly was very pleased and excited about being named partner at the firm. You know, It's something that just doesn't happen, and it's something that really gets reserved for very few people. So it was a big honor.
Good. Now, where are you originally from? Because I looked up your bio, obviously, when we put the website together.
I've been around a little bit, but I was born in South Bend, Indiana, but I only lived there for a year, and then my family moved to Cleveland, Ohio when I was 1, and stayed there till I was 15, and we moved to Houston, Texas when I was 15 years old. And I finished high school in Houston, but then I went out of state for college in Tennessee to a small school called the University of the South, Sewanee. Did that, and then after college I bounced around for a little bit. I spent some time in the Peace Corps in Guatemala, spent some time living on a college friend's family's organic farm in California, and then I came back to Houston after that and worked for a couple of years before I went to law school. So ever since then I've been in Houston.
You were not lying about moving around a little bit. So how'd you, okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you said you were born in South Bend, Notre Dame, moved to Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, then to Houston.
That's correct.
And then you went to college in the University of the South.
In Tennessee, that's correct.
How did you find, I've never heard of that school. How did you find that?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to go to a smaller liberal arts college. And I had been looking back then, before the internet, or maybe the internet existed, but I didn't really use it. They used to have these big books of all the colleges, and you could kind of read through it. And I'd been through it and identified some schools I was looking at. And one day I was in math class with friends, and I guess we were talking and not studying, and we were talking about schools we were looking at. And one of my friends, we had identified a number of the same schools, and he mentioned Sewanee as well, and I'd never heard of it. I went home and read about it, and it sounded like that's where I wanted to go to school. So my family and I went and visited, and pretty much as we drove on the campus, we knew it was the right place for me.
What high school did you go to?
Bel Air High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assume it's a small school.
I think there were 1,300 students total when I went to school there. School's a little bigger now. I think they're closer to 2,000. But when I went to school there, I think my graduating class at Bel Air High School had more students than the entire college that I attended.
So no sports?
They did have sports. It was Division III. It's one of the reasons I went there. I played soccer my freshman year.
I didn't know that.
I thought I was going to play for 4 years, but after my freshman year, I kind of decided to not spend a lot of my time focused on playing soccer.
Okay. And then went straight into law school?
No, I think that I had 4 years in between graduating from college and starting law school. Like I mentioned, I was in the Peace Corps in Guatemala for a while. I spent about a year living on a family or a college friend's family's organic farm in Mendocino, California, and then I came back to Houston after that and spent a year doing manual labor. Somewhere in there I took the LSAT. I had started thinking about doing something, and I was thinking about law school a little bit, so I took the LSAT. And then the year before I started law school, I worked as a kind of assistant paralegal at one of the big law firms here in Houston.
Okay. Now, how did you decide to go in the Peace Corps? That feels like something you see in a movie.
Yeah, my parents actually were in the Peace Corps, so I knew of it my whole life. Now, they went to Afghanistan, which is all the way on the other side of the world. I was more interested, I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish.
Okay.
So I wanted to go to a Spanish-speaking country. And I guess part of it, too, I went to Costa Rica for a couple months immediately after I finished college. And so that kind of got me thinking about I wanted to go live in another country for a while. So
Okay. I actually just went to Guatemala like 2 months ago, so it's a very nice country.
yeah, beautiful country.
And then went to what is an organic farm?
Well, it's just like, for there it was like a family-sized farm. I mean, they had a piece of property inside state, like a 60,000 acre state forest in California. It was the only privately held piece of property, and they had maybe like 400 acres. Most of it was woods, redwood trees, but there was some portion of it that they were growing crops and raising animals to sell to local restaurants at the local farmer market, and to eat for ourselves. So
Okay.
it's just a small farm, a handful of people working on the farm to raise the crops and the animals.
Okay. And then fast forward, you went to law school, or took the LSAT, then went to law school. Now you went to South Texas.
I did, yeah.
Why South Texas versus any of the other Houston law schools, or going back out of state like you did to the University of the South? Did they have a law school at the University of the South?
No, they don't. It was strictly undergrad when I was there. I mean, you want to know the real reason?
Sure.
I probably had too much fun when I was in college, and my grades weren't that good.
Okay.
And so I had a pretty high test score on the LSAT, but a lot of schools weren't interested in taking me because they said, we see that you did well on the test, but we don't have a place for people like you with that GPA. So,
And now look at you.
yeah, South Texas was willing to take a chance on me. No, I got into a couple of schools. I mean, South Texas has a really good reputation. I did, when I was 18 years old, I got a job working as a runner at a law firm. And now nobody knows what a runner is because they don't exist. They're now obsolete because of the internet, but that's back, you have a job like making photocopies and going down to the courthouse to get copies of documents that had just been filed, or to go make filings, or to deliver documents to other offices, or to pick up documents from other offices. So things that we just all do now through the internet.
Say that's the internet now.
Yes, but I had a job at the time, and that was in a law firm, and I thought that was, I really liked that job. It's when I got my first exposure to being in a law firm. And so that's kind of planted a seed for me. And a lot of the lawyers at that firm were from South Texas. I learned about South Texas there. Actually, as a runner, I used to sit with the law clerks, and most of them went to South Texas. And so when I got serious about applying for law school, that was one school I was aware of, and I was aware that many of its graduates go on to do are considered some of the top lawyers in the Houston area. So that they really train students, if you take it seriously, to become a successful practitioner.
Okay. Law school went well, graduated law school, then came right to Abraham Watkins from there?
I did. As a baby attorney, my first job was at Abraham Watkins.
Okay, how was that? Because you worked for Mo back then, right?
I started, my first position was, and that was in 2000, it's like 2009. That's when the big financial crash occurred. And so firms were like laying young lawyers off. So that environment was, I didn't know how I was going to get hired anywhere, because like second and third year lawyers were getting laid off. I remember some of my first interviews, like these sitting there, and the interviewing attorney was like, I got a stack of resumes like this high. And he's like, I got people that I never would have imagined would be applying for this job here. And so I knew that I was kind of up against it, and the world was firing, not hiring. And I just got a call one day. I'd been talking to the career services department. Actually, a family friend who is an attorney, was a hiring attorney at her firm. One of the things she had recommended to me was use the career services office, check in with them, let them know what you're doing, take their advice, show them that you're following their advice. And the firm, Abraham Watkins, had gotten in a case that needed immediate attention, because they were taking over as counsel, and the case had been pending for a while, so it needed a lot of attention really quickly. And the firm called over to Career Services and said, hey, do you know of anybody that's got good credentials and that you know about, that you could recommend that we talk to about hiring them? And so I got a phone call and said, hey, we're interested in talking to you. And so I got hired back then as a contract attorney to work on just that one case. Did that for about 3 months or so. And then at that point, Mo was there. He was very busy. He would think he was a senior associate or junior partner at the time. And he had a lot of cases that needed help working them. And so they said, you're going to work with Mo now and help him on his cases. So I did that for a couple of years as a contract attorney, then left to go work at a defense firm, did that for 7 years, and then came back to Abraham Watkins about 6 years ago.
Okay, and why personal injury? Why did you, when coming out of law school, you could have done contract law, family law, criminal law, why personal injury?
I mean, honestly, what happened is the law firm that I worked as a runner at 18 years old, and they continued to hire me during the summer or a Christmas break while I was home during college. My first year in law school, I was looking for a clerkship that summer, and I was reaching out to different places, but it's kind of tough as a first year law student to find a clerkship, and I knew them, so they said, hey, if you want to come clerk here, you're welcome to do that. And they did personal injury.
Okay.
Defense work, but personal injury. And so I started working there, and then after that, I just continued to work there throughout law school. And so that's what I got experience doing. And I think that's part of the reason why I ended up even getting hired by Abraham Watkins in the first place. I mean, I could be wrong, I wasn't the hiring person. But it was that, combination of I had done well in law school, but also that I had some experience and exposure to personal injury already. Not significant, but some.
And you kind of knew how the defense firms thought.
Yeah, it's certainly helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's more so from my experience, like the 7 years I spent doing defense work. But I mean, at that point, I had some experience like drafting some pleadings and doing some discovery and doing research and drafting memos and just kind of some of the building blocks that are required of a young attorney doing personal injury work.
Okay. But you like plaintiff's work more than defense?
I prefer it, yeah. I mean, as I tell people, there are things that are better about both, right? Or they're easier about both. But obviously, if I didn't want to do what I'm doing, I could go back and do defense work. But I prefer to do what I'm doing today, and I want to keep doing it.
Obviously, the obvious difference is defense versus plaintiffs, but what would you say is the biggest difference between working on this side of personal injury versus defense side of personal injury?
I think one of the biggest differences to me is that I work, and I when I did defense work too, man, I've worked on catastrophic cases. Somebody's either like very badly injured and or dead in the accidents that I've worked on throughout my career, really. And when you represent people like that, they've either, you know, like the breadwinner may have died in the family, or it may be somebody who is responsible for a family or a big part of the family's finances, and they can no longer work, or they have medical bills that they owe that they don't know how they're going to pay them, or they have treatment that they need in the future and they don't know how they're going to get it without the case, or the case being successful for them. And that's representing them and getting a result that can help alleviate those concerns is a big responsibility. And that is something that drives me to get the best result possible for the clients. Whereas on the defense side, yeah, getting a good result for my clients mattered because I represent them and that's my job. But if it's a Fortune 500 company, I mean, they'll survive one case. They're okay. They'll be okay tomorrow. They'll be okay next week. They'll be okay next year. This isn't their life. It's just part of them doing business. And so that is a big difference in terms of outcome of the case. I mean, I always have wanted to do well for my clients and get good results for them, but it's an awesomer responsibility in terms of the importance of getting a result for the client when their financial well-being and or the ability to get care that they need is dependent upon the outcome of the case.
Okay. Now, these cases that you do see, would you say you get more dram shop cases, more chemical explosion cases, more oil field worker, or is it just kind of just a mixture of everything?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a number of different types of cases that I work on, and it can vary somewhat just based on the moment, but it involves a good number of commercial truck accident cases. I do have some dram shop. I probably have 2 or 3 of those right now. We just settled a big one a couple weeks ago, dram shop case involving a boating accident. But those are cases involving the overservice of alcohol. And then have some like construction workplace accident cases, oil field cases, plant explosions, and then some automotive product liability cases as well. So it's kind of a broad sampling, which is nice. I mean, when I did defense work, one of the reasons that I transitioned back to Abraham Watkins is I was doing kind of the same type of case over and over again, and I was looking to have a little bit more variety in terms of the types of cases I was working on.
You think that's why you came back?
It's not the only reason. It is It's a reason that I started to think about transitioning into something else.
Okay. Now, oilfield. I just finished watching this show, Landman.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard at the very beginning there's a big explosion or incident at a well, and there's a lawsuit kind of pending throughout.
It seems like every episode there's something going on, either explosion on a well, a man falling off the top of some pipes on an 18-wheeler. There's just a variety. Now, does it actually, you have cases in the patch over
Yes.
there. Does it happen, is it that often that these actually occur, or is this just a dramatization? This is just one company too.
Right, and that's what I was going to say is, I mean, I don't know because I've never lived or worked for an oil company, or my family doesn't own an oil company like Billy Bob Thornton does in that show. But what I can say is that the oil field is, and I think the like OSHA stats bear this out, that it is one of the most dangerous jobs somebody can have. They pay very well, and I think one, that's probably because they're making a lot of money, and two, that's because it's difficult and dangerous work. And there are lots of accidents that happen in the oil field, and people get very badly injured. I mean, a lot of times they're working under high pressure, or there's very heavy pieces of equipment involved, and so if something goes wrong, it can go really wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember your very first case?
I do.
As I don't know if you'd be at Abraham Watkins or if you're at the defense firm. I'd assume you're at Abraham Watkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned that I was hired to work specifically on one case at Abraham Watkins and it turned out to be for 3 months or something like that. And it actually involved something, I've never worked on this type of case ever again. It was a dispute over oil field leases in the state of Montana. And our client had worked with some investors in Houston, and they'd purchased a bunch of mineral interest leases in Montana somewhere in some field that there was a little speculative. But I think oil and gas was blowing up not like, it was very hot in North Dakota at that time, and this was kind of in that same area, but hadn't been very developed in Montana. And then there was a business arrangement gone wrong, and our guy thought he'd been cut out by the other people, and then they started suing each other over these leases.
Okay, so it's more of like a business litigation case versus a personal injury case.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
But the leases were thought to be potentially very valuable. So there was, at least when we got started, we thought there was a thought that the amount in controversy, the size of the damages were significant. As the case went on, we found out they were smaller and smaller, which is part of the reason that I then transitioned to working with Mo. It was not the case that it was thought to be. So,
now you don't have to tell me amounts or who was involved in the case, but what do you think your largest case has been in your career?
So there's a facility in Louisiana that's owned by a chemical company that's based here out of Houston that had not one but 2 explosions at their facility in Louisiana in a 3-month period. And so we ended up being hired by a number of the workers that were there during both events. So technically it was 2 different cases, but I mean, kind of, they all, because of the timing being so close together, and the same defendant, this was a couple years ago. I mean, they kind of were worked up together contemporaneously, and one, because of the number of clients, but 2, also some of them were very seriously injured. 2 of them were at ground zero, or actually the first incident, 2 of them were at ground zero of the explosion in that event, and then the other one, we had 3 clients were at ground zero of the explosion in the second event. So very serious injuries, very bad conduct on behalf of the defendant, and so they resulted in significant settlements for the injured clients.
Okay. So you've been recently recognized by super lawyers. This is a very prestigious group that gets recognized by super lawyers every year. What does it mean to you to be recognized as one of these top attorneys, top personal injury attorneys in the state of Texas, as recognized by your peers?
Yeah, and I mean, this is how, I guess similar to making partner, it was something that I would be lying if I told you, as I've been an attorney, that I didn't care about it, right? And so, as somebody that, I put a lot of time and effort into being an attorney and improving as an attorney, and I've been on cases or had bosses or peers that have received the recognition, and so it was an honor to find out one day that those that say, hey, these are the people I think are good attorneys, that they thought of me, that I'd gotten to a point in my career where I'm sure earlier in my career I didn't warrant it, right? But that by continuing to work on my skills and my abilities, that ultimately at one point enough people said, hey, I think Karl's a pretty good attorney, that they were willing to put my name down, and so that felt really good, and it was a big honor.
Okay. Now, as a super lawyer, as a partner, someone who maybe slacked off a little bit in undergrad, but then you turned it around, turned it on, and did really well in law school, and were able to, stay top of mind. You used that to get into one of the oldest personal injury law firms in the state of Texas. What advice would you give to a young person, young attorney, that would like to maybe get where you are in a few years?
Well, the thing is, so are we talking about to somebody who's they're already an attorney?
Let's say somebody
they're in law school.
Let's say a 3L at South Texas, or a 3L at U of H, so we don't offend anybody.
Yeah. So this is what I would say, and when I started at Abraham Watkins, there was an attorney at the defense firm that I had been clerking at. Mm-hmm. I clerked there all through law school, or at least the 2 and 3L years, and then even after the bar, while I was looking for my first job as an attorney, I was still working as a law clerk there. And one of the attorneys found out that I was moving to Abraham Watkins, and he said, you need to go over there, and you need to put your head down, and you need to work hard, and don't worry about any outside noise. Just work hard, work on becoming a better attorney, learning from your mistakes, and things will work out for you. And I did take that to heart. I remember that advice, but I can also say this, and I see this in a lot of young attorneys, that when I was a baby attorney, I always had my O'Connors, whether it be the Texas rules, federal rules, CPRC, causes of action, forms, they were always within an arm's reach. Back then, I did a lot of brief writing. They had there's things called the Blue Book and the Green Book. And so there's so much that you don't know as a young attorney that you have to read all this stuff. You have to go, hey, I got a question about this. How does this work? I've been asked to do this. Well, you got to go to the book and read about it. And you go to the index, and which parts of the index lead me to which parts of the book that might be applicable to my scenario. And then they might lead you to cases. And then now you got to go to Lexis or Westlaw or wherever and go read these cases. And well, that case has a yellow flag or that case has a red flag. Now I need to go read the cases that say there's something wrong with this opinion. And really run all that to ground. And what you don't realize you're doing during that is you're just like building your base foundation of knowledge of especially this area of the law that you practice in, because now next time that issue comes up, you don't necessarily need to go down that rabbit hole of finding out everything about it. You may remember it, or you may just have some specific area that you need to go look at. And that takes work, that takes time, that takes, you're a lot slower because you have to find out the answers to all these things. And if you don't put that time in, if you don't put that effort in, you'll never develop that foundational knowledge that you need to have to be successful practicing in whatever area of the law you're going into. And I remember even in some later on, even as a 2 or 3 year attorney, I started doing fence work, going in and asking a boss a question, and they're like, have you checked your rule book? Right? Like, I'm not here to give you the answer. Your job as an attorney is to figure out the answers to these questions. That's what you get paid to do, is to figure out answers to questions. Not that you can't ever go talk to somebody, but if you don't figure out how to answer these questions for yourself, you're not ever going to amount to anything. And so I see that a lot where people come to me and they say, hey, do you know the answer to this? Yeah, I know the answer to this, and I can help shortcut this for you. But the reality is, if you don't know how to go find that answer for yourself, if you want to get somewhere, you're not ever going to get there. Because you have to know how to find that route. That's my take.
Okay.
There's more to it than that, but I think that's to be a successful, whether it's as a personal injury lawyer, whether it's some other kind of lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's probate attorney. I don't do probate work, but you need to know about how the rules, how the law works so that you can work within it. Mm-hmm. And you need to know how to figure out answers to questions. And a lot of that comes from just going through your rule book and reading stuff. And then once you kind of build that base of knowledge, now I rarely look at those things. There's not one someday that it was all of a sudden I moved those books off my desk, but you just start to kind of look back and realize, golly, it's been a long time since I've had to pull one of those books and look at it.
Okay. So how do you think all that hard work and experience translates to every day when you're dealing with, let's call it 120 cases on your docket, and you have, they kind of probably run together a little bit, but how do you pick out the case and say, okay, this case needs to go to trial. This case we can settle. This case, we're going to have to wait for mediation on this one. How do you figure out which cases are going to get which results, or maybe not the financial result, but how to get to that financial result?
What the path is for that case?
Yeah.
I think it starts with treating every case like they are going to go to trial. And so if you're thinking that I need to approach this case like it can be tried, or it will have to be tried, then you start to put the pieces together to develop the case. Some of those, and through that work, some of those cases, you'll realize that, hey, there's a good chance at resolving this case. Whether that be through sending a demand letter that gets the case settled, whether that is through a mediation, whether that's from just talking with the defense counsel or the adjusters on the other side, that this thing can be resolved. And others, as the case develops, it'll be like, hey, look, it looks like this case may need to be tried. That the way this one's developing, it just seems like the parties are going to be they're kind of dug in their positions, and there isn't a middle ground that can be reached. That said, I think last fall I had 5 cases that were in the they need to be tried or settled position. They were all preferentially set for trial every 2 weeks apart for 2.5 months. And if you had asked me in the spring or even the summer before that run started, and I think early August into October, that none of those cases would actually get to trial, that they would all settle, I would have never taken that bet or said, I believe you, right? I would have said, no, at least 1 or 2 of those cases are going to have to be tried. Well, I think 3 of them settled at 5 p.m. on Friday afternoon before Monday. But part of the reason they settled was because we treated them like they're going to go to trial. And ultimately, even though the parties had been entrenched, there was a final bridging of the gap that resulted in settlements. But fortunately, not all cases go that far. That they resolve sooner, which is better for the clients, I think, typically. And so, and every once in a while, I mean, at this point, not that many cases go to trial, but if the other side thinks that you are willing to, that they can't just make you a lowball offer and ultimately you'll cave and take it because you're afraid of going to trial, they'll ultimately come around. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes the parties just stay dug in, and you got to let a jury decide it. And we're willing to do that if we need to.
You said make sure you're ready to go to trial on every case, basically. What makes a good trial lawyer that can get the results for their clients necessary? Well,
yeah, I mean, when I say like, work, I mean, you're not gonna, if a case comes in, like if a case came in last week, right? Like we're not gonna be ready to go to trial tomorrow or next week. I mean, there's a process that goes into that.
Right.
But if the other side sees that you're putting those pieces together, and as the case goes on, that they think that, okay, these people will be ready to try the case, that's different than even being on the other side, being a defense lawyer, where you say, these people aren't ready. These people don't know what they're doing. These people don't have their ducks in a row. That emboldens a defendant. That tells a defendant that they can kind of box somebody in and then either force a low settlement or take them to trial, and they won't be able to put on the evidence they need to at the time of trial. And so we need to make sure that we have, if there's evidence, say if it's a vehicle accident, that the vehicles have been secured, that we hire the right experts to address liability, that we that clients that need medical treatment receive the medical treatment they need, that they receive the evaluations that they need to look at their damages, because each case is about responsibility and about damages. It's 2 parts, and or 2 primary parts, and then then it goes through are you sending discovery to them? Are you sending the right discovery requests to them? Are you taking depositions? Are you taking depositions of the right witnesses, asking the right questions, developing the testimony so that you can get past any type of summary judgment, so that they know, at the end of the day, that you have the evidence that you need to put on the best case, that you've developed evidence to defeat any type of motion that they would try to file to dismiss the case. And this case is going to get to a jury. And a jury then is going to get to decide, did these people do something wrong? And if so, how much do they owe? And if you can do that and put the defendant in that position, a lot of times they don't want to gamble with what a jury might do. They would prefer to control outcome at that standpoint.
Okay. Well, Karl, as we look to kind of close out, I know from talking to you in the office that you're a soccer fan. What other hobbies would you say you have, and how do you find a balance between being goal-oriented and becoming partner and balancing out family life or personal life?
I mean, I am a big soccer fan, and Houston Dynamo. Who used to work for Jeff.
Yep. Years ago now.
Yeah, people will ask me, they'll say, "Who's your team?" And I say, "Houston Dynamo," and they say, "No, really, who is your team?" But I also like watching European soccer and sometimes Mexican league. And anyways, I can watch just about any game. So I've got season tickets to the Dynamo. When they have international games come to Houston, I go to many of those. I went to the U.S.-Mexico Gold Cup final here. I'm excited for World Cup next year. I've got tickets for a number of games to go to with my wife. That's been kind of
They're on sale already?
Pre-sale.
Oh, man, I got to figure out when Brazil's coming.
Yeah, that's been like a lifelong dream of mine. So, like,
never been to a World Cup?
Never. It's like a bucket list item for me.
It's something different. You've never seen it.
We went on our honeymoon a couple of years ago. I went to my first EPL game. We went and saw Crystal Palace and Fulham play in London, and then we were in Barcelona, and I saw Barcelona play in the Camp Nou, or however they pronounce it.
The new Camp Nou.
Yeah. They played Espanyol, who's not very good, but they're also in Barcelona, so it was a Barcelona derby. And I think there were like 13 yellow cards and 2 red cards in the game. So, and that was an experience going to Barcelona.
Barcelona's fun too.
Like, I think it was like 80,000 fans in the stadium, every seat taken. Very different experience than going to a Dynamo game. But
I'd say so.
I'll be honest. I work a lot. I wake up early most days. Oftentimes work at home before I come to the office. I'm in the office late, in the evenings, a lot of times it's just come home and enjoy a little bit of time with my wife and have dinner and maybe watch something that we're enjoying, or sometimes, go out to dinner during the week. And then on the weekend, try and get a workout or two in and watch some. I'm glad the EPL's just started again. Finally. So I can watch my Saturday mornings. I didn't know what to do without games on TV. Mm-hmm. And then, we do stuff, whether it's adulting or doing something that we enjoy on the weekends. But then I'll work pretty much every Sunday. It's a time that the office is quiet. On a standard day, the phone's ringing, people have questions, clients have questions, emails are coming in, projects. So it's a time to kind of be quiet and either, work on a project, get organized for the week, catch up on emails, but so that I can hit the ground running when Monday happens. And, those are things that, that if the other side's not doing them, and we talk about what helps get to good settlements, right, for clients, or showing the other side that you're ready for trial. Well, one way you do that is by outworking them. And so that means early mornings, late nights, and weekends. But that's what it takes to get results for clients, and results that we think are fair and just. And I think we've gotten some pretty good results for our clients since I've been back at the firm. And the goal is to continue doing that. And you've got, just because you've done it in the past, if you just slack off, it's not going to happen in the future. You got to keep putting it in.
Good point. Last question. Now that you're a partner, that you can check that off the bucket list. But what other goals or aspirations do you have for the remainder of your career, would you say?
Ooh.
'Cause you're never done.
No, I mean, that's right? Like I just mentioned that, right? You can't rest on your laurels because it is a highly competitive field. And if you aren't working on improving yourself and your abilities and putting the same type of effort into your work, you won't maintain that level, and you won't even be able to do your job properly. And so, I know this is probably the wrong answer. When I was interviewing for jobs as a young associate, and I'd been a contract attorney at Abraham Watkins, and then back then you had to go somewhere else to be an associate at first. Mm-hmm. And people would say, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I'd say, I don't really operate like that. I'll take it a day at a time. And so lots of law firms, I don't think they like that answer. They expect you to have the 5-year plan. I don't have one, and I don't. I look at it as, hey. I do plan some in the future. You have to when you have cases. You have to look at when is this case going to trial, when is the expert designation. You have to know things in the future. But a lot of times it's they're also short term. There's like what's due today, what's due tomorrow, what's due next week, or what's on the calendar. But a lot of my life I've just kind of what's the one from All Who Wander Are Not Lost, something like that. So I've kind of been wandering my way through life and somehow ended up here where I'm sitting today, and that's just been, I'm not, because it was not some master plan, but it's been through consistency and just incrementally working on improving my ability as a lawyer on a daily basis, and just keeping at it, and somehow I ended up here where somebody wanted to actually interview me.
All right, Karl. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you all for watching again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.